Percent of the time, I have no idea what I'm talking about.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
It's not. It
Gets the people going.
You're now listening to Diagnonsense.
Look at all this damage!
With Justin Pendergrass and Kurt Honak.
You are a sad, strange little man.
Then we would just be idiots saying nonsense.
Into it a little bit.
Okay, we'll start recording. But we can't just get into it because we have to start with something.
Oh, okay. The housekeeping?
No, well, no. No, we don't have a soft open.
We're not
just
doing that.
recording.
We're not? Okay.
Big Pharma,
Oh, yeah.
walking
Question
down
for you.
the street. Big Pharma, they give you pills to eat. Big Pharma.
Kurt, we did find a Krampus Funko Pop on
Did
the
you?
internet.
Wow.
Yeah.
You guys are so
We kind of
thoughtful.
want it for you.
I feel loved when I come in here.
Every
don't
time
know
that
if
we
it's-
mention your doppelganger.
Yeah. I do. It makes me feel special, warm and
Yes.
fuzzy inside.
Yes.
Warm and fuzzy on the outside.
Yeah.
You're kind of like a really, really nice teddy bear with extremely long, scary claws.
Yeah.
Kurt's
That's-
mascot is definitely my favorite out of all of them.
Yeah,
Bigfoot.
that's true.
Prescription drug Krampus.
Prescription drug Bigfoot.
Did you see, Justin, I don't know if you saw what one of Kurt's Christmas gifts, but he got a coffee mug that looks like a prescription pill bottle that he has on his desk now. And I printed out, I put the prescription drug Krampus sticker on his other coffee cup. And then like 3 days later, Curly got him that one. And I was just like, gosh, dang it. Like that would have been the perfect mug for prescription drug Krampus to live on. It says like Dr. Feelgood, Kurt Honak on the prescription line. And then it's like herbal tea, 1 herbal tea a day. But then the back is just prescription drug Krampus.
Yeah. Dr. Feelgood was a Motley Crue album, wasn't it?
Was it?
I think so.
Music.
So I see the irony there.
You're part of the Motley Crew?
Well, I read
Well-
Nikki Sixx's diary on his drug addiction.
I was going to
No,
say.
he's right. Dr. Feelgood is.
And
It's a song by them, at least.
Yeah.
speaking, like that's kind of what our main topic is going to be about. Speaking of musicians who struggle with mental health and substance abuse issues, Motley Crue.
The Motley Crew. Thank you guys for tuning into Diagnonsense. I'm your host, Justin Pendergrass. I'm here with Kurt Honak. How you doing, Kurt?
You're doing great. Your
Good to see you,
co-host.
dude.
We're very high energy today.
Yeah.
It's this won't be releasing this week, but it is when we're recording it. We're 2 days before New Year's,
Yeah.
so we're about to get more time off of work. I'm about to go on my honeymoon for 2 weeks. I'm gonna be in
Really?
Europe.
Again?
No,
She still
again.
likes you?
Yeah,
She
so
still likes
we
you.
made it all of 5 months. Yep.
Dang,
Yep.
bro.
Made
Impressive.
it to. I had to bribe her with a European vacation, but you know what? At least until mid-January.
That's the going price now, isn't it?
No, it's my
It's
winning.
true.
It's my winning.
What kind of
personality.
vacations can you offer? It's part of the prenup.
we didn't have a prenup. We love each other. Yes.
Yeah.
Love. But yeah, no, it's
Prenup means love. It's just written out on paper.
God.
It's documented love.
Make it stop.
But it's definitely like that time right before kind of the new year where we were talking about it's the time right before Christmas week and it's like, oh, it's dark, and now it's after Christmas. And I mean I had a good how was your guys' holiday? I feel like I had a pretty good Christmas this year. Got to see lots of family and got to see some friends. But now all my friends are flying back to wherever they live, and it's the week before I'm getting ready to go, so I'm just antsy for that. And now it's not Christmas time anymore. We're taking down all the Christmas decorations. I don't know. It's going to be a little,
Yeah.
the house is going to feel super empty without all the garland and stuff.
Yeah. Listen.
My Christmas was fine. I don't necessarily. I'm kind of a Grinch. I'm happy that the Christmas decorations are going down because all I think about is the electricity that's being wasted.
My gas bill sucked and my electricity bill sucked. I'm trying to like unplug the Christmas tree lights, but I'm the only one that cares about that. So if I didn't do it, definitely probably an extra $50 on my electric bill.
There's a fusion breakthrough, apparently. They said so you won't be able to escape the glory of Christmas pretty soon.
Justin, you're going to have to go to an underground bunker if you don't want your Christmas lights. Once cold fusion is the norm, you're going to just have to go underground for all of December.
That's all right. There's probably a cult I can join for the month. A Christmas cult. Yeah. They all dress as the Grinch and they just live underground together, scowling at everyone.
I know this isn't our main topic, so I don't want to pull us off the road too far. But I was thinking next year's Christmas movie. We did the Grinch this year, obviously, but next year's Christmas movie, the
Grinch again.
No, I was thinking the Rankin Bass Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer movie. Talk about how Santa promotes a eugenic death cult where he shames Donner for Donner's genes causing Rudolph to have an abnormality. I thought Kurt might jump all over that.
I've seen that.
Doesn't Santa know about?
Yes, you have. It's the claymation Rudolph, Justin.
Oh, it's the original.
Yeah. No, the original Rudolph. Yes. 45-minute song.
Doesn't Santa know about the Santa Claus, the reindeer constitution that recognizes all reindeer as equal?
That wasn't made until after they started letting Rudolph play in the reindeer games.
Gotcha.
Okay, let's not
Rudolph
get into
instituted that when he became the leader of the pack.
Let's not get into Rudolph. Let's not. When Rudolph claimed the fascist dictatorship of reindeer for himself, yes, after his abnormality made him useful. Let's not get into it. Justin, we were talking. Kurt had to do his job, his whole client navigation job that he gets paid to do here. So we were talking before we started recording.
Selfish.
I know.
What can I say?
We were kind of talking about music type stuff, and I think it's a cool conversation that you can lead into. So. Just talking about the mental health struggles of a lot of these creatives. We have some crazy stats, but before you say any of them, I have a quick housekeeping segment for everyone.
Ooh,
so
why don't you skip that and let's get right into the good stuff.
I skipped it the last 2 months. Just a heads up that my voice won't be releasing the next couple weeks because we weren't with the holiday season. We weren't able to get recording in with the next person who's going to be on there. But when it does come out, I believe 3 weeks time, at least from when we are recording, or maybe from when this is releasing, it will be back to back. So just stay tuned for more information about that. January is Sex and Human Trafficking Prevention Awareness Month. Lots of events. Check out the My House Facebook. My House podcast has stuff dropping. Redemption has stuff dropping. And we have stuff dropping because we always do. Also, January 10th, Candlelight Vigil here at the My House building, I believe. So all of that, I don't have the full details for because we're recording this super early. So just check our social media for updates. Okay. Now you can go, Justin.
Rock on.
Yeah. It is
shameless plug. My Trying to Be a Rapper EP drops tonight at 8 p.m.
That's right. Technically,
so by the time you guys are hearing this, I'll be in the future. 1 million streams on Spotify.
Yes.
Speaking that into existence.
They're all from Justin. He just is going to open. He is hacking into the school district's computer
I don't
labs.
listen to my own music when it drops.
No, I do.
No, because it fluffs my music. It like fluffs the streaming, and that's not good.
Yeah.
I don't want to have like false numbers.
Yeah, no,
you can tell. It'd be like 1 million streams, only 4 people listened to your project. That'd look really bad because you see those numbers.
I usually try to throw it into my listeners. Into my new music playlist on Spotify or whatever, so that when I'm coming in, I can listen to it. I think you sent me these 3 tracks early, so I'm actually really excited to listen to them, not through a Google Drive link.
Oh yeah,
just put them on my Spotify.
Some of the best stuff me and Mike have done together, if not the best stuff we've done together. So I'm excited about them.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's music. And, me and Isaac were talking about how a lot of celebrity artists and musicians struggle with mental health. and how it's actually some really alarming numbers. It's 70% of musicians struggle with mental health. Was the number that I actually, when I was doing some research the other day.
Well, and
kind of blows my mind. And, like 50% of them will struggle with drugs in their life.
Right.
So
I have some naive thoughts on this from outside look, without as being someone that doesn't have a ton of lived experience in kind of that aspects of what we do and what we talk about. And then also as someone who isn't really ingrained in music culture, I would consider myself a music enjoyer, but I can't say that I have that experience.
The consumer.
Yes, I am the consumer. And I would say that that having to struggle with some mental health aspects in your life and overcome those challenges and kind of wrestling with that, I think that fuels creativity, or at least, and I'd love to be corrected by both of you on my takes, but especially growing up, that's kind of always what you hear is just like, oh, like, yeah, so and so has depression. Or we were talking about Kanye, right? Like Kanye absolutely has he's been diagnosed as with bipolar disorder, and even though I absolutely do not condone any of the things he's been saying, as far as that genre of music goes, in the last decade, he's released some like pretty good music tracks, and it sucks because I really can't get behind the individual, but I feel like that's the narrative, is just like your mental health challenges make you a better musician, which I don't think necessarily is true. And then we were also talking about, Justin, is how, there can be this perception, and Kurt, you said it, is, we don't want people to think that becoming a heroin addict, like a Kurt
Enhances their
Cobain,
career.
that enhances your creativity or career. So
I'll let Kurt touch on that first. I have some opinions, but I want to hear what his thoughts are on what you said.
I don't know. I just remember growing up and watching all the documentaries about bands in the 90s or whatever, and musicians struggling, and and that was really like, I feel like there's almost like a romanticization about mental health, where it was like, when you're bipolar, you have huge bouts of mania that can make you super creative. They'd always emphasize how good that was. And when I look at like, those stars, I go, okay, so if they're taking like, I don't know, an antidepressant or something, and they had mania, what comes along with mania? Well, nothing good. It's like people, they do more, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there's more quality. There's parts that, ruin your regular functioning, and I think when people are when people are depressed, they can be more honest and frank, and sometimes that comes out in their in their work. But the problem is that, instead of like somebody going through a dark time and then recording content, it's like we're trying to manufacture depression and stuff so that people can push the boundaries of instead of just like, writing a song. Now we have to push people over the edge because they need more intensity. There needs to be more intensity. There's like a desensitization collectively, right? And there needs to be more intensity. And so I remember watching all these documentaries like about bands and stuff and going like, oh, they were really talented because, they started to use drugs and they started to crank out more stuff. And they were, they had this mental illness that, made them, I think Van Gogh is like an example too, because they talk about Van Gogh, as being like, or like Edgar Allan Poe or somebody, right? Like from a long time ago, it's like, they suffered from, so-and-so. And, I think that brings out stuff, but the problem is that if we're talking about like celebrity suicide and people who take their own lives, is that there's obviously an edge where you can go off of. and I don't think that process is as organic as it was, as it used to be. I think it's more of like I need to become the hardest musician possible, so I need to do the hardest drugs. And there's this in some of the music too. It's even nihilistic to the point where it's like, that's the lifestyle. It's like, well, screw everything. Use drugs. Nobody cares. Everything's lost. And I feel like there's a difference between expressing that cathartically and making that a lifestyle. I think you can express it cathartically and artistically without glorifying it as a lifestyle, I think.
Okay.
It almost becomes like depression becomes the addiction.
Yeah.
Like, because what you're saying, Kurt, is like, they crave that creativity so much because, well, now they're put into this pressure situation where they have thousands, millions of people who are watching them.
Yeah.
And they have to output content. And the best music they've ever written has been in their lowest points.
Right.
You always hear those stories, from the artists. You don't ever hear about a hopeful time, in those interviews where, I was doing really good.
Right.
Rarely do you find those interviews. You find those interviews where they're like, I was in probably one of the darkest places I've ever been in my life. And I wrote this song and it helped kind of nudge me out of that. But then they chase that. They chase that place. They get themselves depressed through all means or whatever, whether it's like
totally,
not sleeping or, drug fatigue and things like that, like what's going on with them when they're using.
Yeah.
And like you said, the industry tries to glorify depression.
Yeah.
And then we have young people who want to be like that artist. So they're depressed now because they want to be nothing more than that artist. And then we end up with, young people dying the same way that our celebrities are dying. And it breaks my heart, really, because that's not why I got into music in the first place. Music for me was just to cope with what I'm dealing with and help me process what I was going through in a way that wasn't still in my head. But even like as the industry has developed and grown, it's become this like, it romanticizes the depression and the mental health so much that it becomes like, oh, you're depressed too, we're the same, let's all be depressed together, rather than hey, we need help, how can we help each other be better, how can we get out of this?
Yeah, I think, well, I want to touch on something that Kurt said first. Is I think that we when we listen to music, a lot of people that listen to music latch on to songs or musical pieces that they find to be real or come from a place of lived experience. And I'm not even talking about necessarily lived experience with mental health problems or suicide, but even if it's just something like, I think that someone who is a really good country artist, and it's the first person that comes to my head because I one of my Christmas gifts was I got the album for Chris Stapleton's Traveler, which, I mean, that is maybe one of my favorite just like albums to listen to of all time. And he's not necessarily talking about in some of those songs mental health problems, but he's talking about real life experiences or emotions or feelings that you can just tell by listening to the music that he's coming at it from a place of personal experience, and you connect with it, I think, on a little more of an emotional level because of it. And it helps that he's got a really great voice and he's a very talented musician, and he doesn't lean on, he doesn't really have to lean on a lot of other technology to help him out. He's just got a ton of individual talent. And then tying into what you just said, Justin, I think a lot of individuals do the same thing that you just talked about, where, you're not performing or you're not making music because you have because you have mental health challenges. You're using it as, you know, a coping mechanism and a release to kind of talk about some of those feelings and you know, you as something to latch onto that you enjoy doing. And so I think that a lot of times, you know, you're talking about the glorification of mental health struggles with musicians, as in, oh, that person is depressed, so he makes great music. And really it's more so like, oh, that person struggles with depression, and so as a way to help him work through that, he makes music not even necessarily about that, but as kind of a release. And
it's almost like that chicken and the egg situation,
right?
right?
Yes,
Which
that's
came
what I was going to say.
Were they depressed before they started making music or after?
And there's a little bit of both. I definitely think that, you know, the top level musicians and celebrities, Kurt, you were talking about the lifestyle. I think that a lot of people get pressured into that, or that's what's around them. You look at like SNL very famously had a massive cocaine problem in the 80s. That's how Chris, yeah, I know, shocking. But that was a major contributor to why like Chris Farley died, like maybe one of the most talented sketch comedians of all time. And, you know, he had his own struggles and battles with mental health and substance abuse issues. And I kind of go back to what you just said, Justin, as well. Is it the chicken or the egg? Is he having those struggles because he has mental health issues, or is the industry pushing, you know, are we pushing our celebrities and our musicians too far to where they feel like that's the only place they have to turn, yeah. Right? Because it's a challenging. I mean, our celebrity culture is really quite toxic. You know, again, another hot take, but I think we talk about it through the lens of, you know, it's toxic for all of us. Like, you know, we're watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and why are we even watching that? Why are we focusing on that? Yeah,
you would be the one.
I'm not. I don't watch. I have.
You're
watched.
watching it, Isaac. You just said it on national television.
It wasn't my choice. Anyway, but you know what I mean. We're talking about it through the lens of why are we watching this, instead of, oh my gosh, think about what these, you know, these celebrities are people too. And we acknowledge that, especially nowadays, we acknowledge that like, oh, celebrities are just people too. But have we really comprehended what that means? Is it even possible for us lowly plebs that, you know, our platform isn't as big to comprehend what their emotional state is on a day-to-day basis of just trying to satisfy the demand for their services?
Well, I don't know. This is a little bit of a segue too, but I just think the drug culture has evolved too. You know, I mean, I think that like it's challenging because we don't really recognize commonly used drugs as drugs, like caffeine, nicotine, everything's kind of just like alcohol. It's like
caffeine.
Well, it's socially acceptable, right? But at the end of the day, it's like, you know, I mean, I think it can be mutually exclusive that the drugs have evolved to the point where they're not socially, there's no way to socially indulge because of the dangers and the ways that they have evolved simultaneously, while the market has begun to manufacture, people have begun to chase that extreme polarization of like mental health and glorify that, because it's hard for me. It's hard for me, right? I enjoyed one of the things that I enjoyed when I went through amphetamine addiction was Antichrist Superstar. And I remember Marilyn Manson, you know, that whole group, the shock rock scene, they were talking about how they would just stay up days on end and use coke. And I remember how dark that album was, and that album got me through a lot of shit. But I don't think, you know, did I take that as, to me, it was a cathartic, performative experience. I didn't want to live like I was in hell. I was in hell, but I didn't want to live like that. I didn't want that for everybody in my future and the world, right? But it's tough, man. I mean, do I think that people don't use that and it, you know, has contributed to artistic endeavors? It's like, I can't honestly say that, but I will say that like a lot of people are going to smoke their brains like and look like Timothy Leary by the end of like, you know, I mean, if you want to go out and manufacture a drug induced creative endeavor, it's like, we have the research to show that these drugs damage your brain. Like that's not people who are creative are genius. I think they're talented. And what ends up happening is they still have that underlying talent, but then you add a substance and they're just dependent on the substance and maybe not quite as creative. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
Are they getting more creative because they're on a substance, or is it just harder to work without, like,
yeah, right.
We talked about caffeine addiction.
Too.
Like,
right.
If I didn't have the standard 2 cups of coffee I had today, I probably would be sitting with a pretty decent headache right now.
Right.
And I would still be able to work. I don't think that it would increase like my creative juices for having to go back and edit this podcast. I'm probably not going to edit it any different, but it would just be harder for me to here at 7 a.m. to be as productive as I would be if I had 2 cups of coffee. So I don't think people are getting any creative. I just think it's harder work when you don't, anytime that you don't lean on a substance like that. Right. I mean, if I could edit podcasts while high on meth, I probably would finish editing faster, but like it wouldn't be good for me. And I don't think it would.
Yeah. And the quality of your work would drop, right?
And
I'm not endorsing like Marilyn Manson or anything that he's done. Like you look at him now and all the scandals. I don't know what's true and what's not true. And I just know when I was a lonely teenager and all I had was drugs and I was hurting like real bad inside, is that album spoke to me on a level, you know what I mean? And
well, I think that we all have those songs, those albums, those, you know, of those, like it's not like the number one for me, but like there's music from Ludacris has this song called Runaway Love. And in my life, when things were going really hard at home, like I'd listen to that song all the time.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, man, if I could just run away from all of this.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to, but it made me feel like I could.
Right. Yeah.
It made me feel like there was an option. Like if everything gets bad enough, I do have a way out.
Yeah. I hear that because that's where I was at too. I felt that too.
Of course, I'm not encouraging that.
Right.
But also like, it gave me a sense of safety. And I think sometimes that's what we find in our music, you know, because sometimes it's like, you know, hey, this guy has it a whole lot worse than I do, you know?
Yeah. Well,
you
too,
know,
and yeah, I mean, cathartic. Go ahead.
Like I remember listening to like Immortal Technique. Do you know who that is?
I've heard of them. Yeah.
So it's a rapper and he writes this song, and do not go and listen to this song, Michelle.
NSFW warning.
We get in trouble for Michelle all the time when we talk about something that
we go deep.
Yeah. Well, no, when we talk about something that has one of those tags on it, and then she goes and listens to it and is horrified.
Yeah.
It's this song called Dance with the Devil. And again, I am not promoting this song. It is awful. I have listened to it once. And it is one of the most gruesome storytelling songs that I have ever heard, because it's about this young man and growing up in a gang life and really what happens when he gets jumped into this gang. But those kind of songs, I think, you know, although necessary for some people, aren't always necessary for everyone. And that's okay. But songs like that can also steer people in the wrong direction. You know,
well, music is so subjective. I mean,
right.
We could all listen to the same song and pull any amount of different. We could all take, you know, many different things away from it musically, what we liked about it in a music theory perspective, and also what we connected with on kind of like an emotional, subjective experience perspective. I guess my question to try to make this as productive as possible, my question would just be how can we have people express themselves? People have a right to express themselves. You're talking about a song, talking about someone's gang experience, Justin, and I think for him, and maybe for a lot of people, you'd listen to that song, and for him, it's a way to share, like, this is the only way I know how to share what the horrible things that happened. Like, this is the only way that I can share this and get it off my chest, and a bunch
100%,
of people, and a bunch of people would look at it and be like, man, here's a great example. Here's a creative way that someone is showing, like, the dangers of getting sucked into gang life. But
and I believe that that's what that song was for.
But how do you stop it from promoting to some other people the that kind of lifestyle? I mean, I think you listen to a lot of... If you heard
this song, you would know it's not a glorification of this. It's more of like a traumatic experience that he's sharing. It's just sometimes there's songs that I can't listen to some songs.
Well, and you listen, there's a lot of 90, especially in the early 90s, a lot of rappers that talk about, and I think many would argue, and even in some cases I would agree, that some of that music glorifies kind of that gang lifestyle. But
and that was a lot of the fear when hip hop was becoming big.
Right. But
I don't necessarily believe that, those songs were generally glorifying them as much as they were talking about their experiences, of course.
Right.
But I do understand the fear of most people. Like, that song I'm talking about isn't a glorification of that. It's just a song that I personally am like, wow, that was a lot.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of vulnerability, and some things in that song are like, holy cow, I'm so sorry that stuff happened to you, dude. But I could never listen to it again.
Yeah.
It's like Requiem for a Dream. You watch it one time and then you're like, okay, I got it.
Yeah.
So right, there's those movies that you see and you're like, holy crap, I never want to see that again.
Yeah, like Breakfast Club for me.
The Breakfast Club.
I could leave it.
Is that a trauma movie?
Your trauma's showing, Isaac.
No, I just think
your
it's like fine.
Made you watch The Breakfast Club growing up?
I think I actually watched it. I watched it with an ex-girlfriend, and I was just like,
okay,
like Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink. Like, I could see it once. I don't need to see it again. It's basically the same thing as super traumatic movies.
Ex relationships can ruin
your parents
things.
Really hurt you, dude. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, my mom had one over Christmas dinner that she said I needed to mention, but it's so traumatic that apparently I've forgotten it over the course of the last couple of days.
As much as I love that movie Joker, I'm like, oh my God, this is really happening to people where they're getting drugged up and then going doing something crazy. And so watching that once was like, I want to freaking cry every time I see that movie, because it's like that really happens to people.
So
Well, he deserved so many awards for that movie. Because I mean, that guy. Okay, and see, if we're talking about mental health, like, imagine the strain that goes on those people who go into movies like that, like
a method actor like Joaquin Phoenix, specifically,
Heath Ledger.
About.
The mental health that he put himself through. He locked himself in a hotel room for a month straight preparing for that role. Like, that's just mind-blowing to me. Like, they torture themselves to be the best that they can be on these films, and then the after effects we don't even actually see.
I guess the takeaway, or the final question that I kind of want to pose is just, how do we allow these creatives to share their experiences and talk about these experiences of these dark places without promoting it to certain individuals? Or is it possible? Because I don't think that's possible, Isaac, but I do think that there's something that Michelle always says to us in our training, and like when we were going through working and learning how to be in our positions. That's not your story. You do not get to have that. Yeah.
You don't get to carry it. You don't get to bring it with you places. That's their story to tell. That's theirs to share. And I think that there's a lot of power in that, right? Because a lot of times people will take on, it's like, what is it, like secondhand depression is what I'm going to call it.
Yeah.
where like that person's sad, which becomes a codependency thing. So you become sad for them, and then you put yourself in this state of mind. You can't do that when you're listening to music or you're listening to these artists.
Yeah.
And another thing that I think that needs to change in the industry is that if an artist is writing about it in a song, they obviously need help. And the fact that they're not getting any sort of help at all, wrap around friendships, anything like that, and we're losing them the way we're losing them, blows my mind. Because they're like, oh, we didn't know, but the last song they released was about killing themselves. You know, how did you not know?
Yeah.
It's not an excuse anymore.
Right.
Yeah, and maybe for the consumers of that media, I'll go back to a conversation that I had this past week is if your takeaway from watching the show Breaking Bad is that you can make a lot of money making meth and selling meth, you're probably not doing the critical thinking that you need to be doing while watching that show.
That show is about our medical industry not being affordable.
That
is the takeaway that you need from that show.
I thought it was more about the dangers of hubris in pride. That was my biggest takeaway from it. But this isn't a Breaking Bad review,
Both.
although
It could be both.
It can be both. It's
I feel like mine hits a little bit closer to the realities that we're in.
It's a show about a lot of things, but and maybe if you're someone that it's okay to not consume certain types of media also. Not everyone should watch Breaking Bad. Not everyone is going to enjoy watching Breaking Bad.
No.
Michelle
Breaking
might
Bad's
enjoy
actually
it.
not a bad one.
It's not too bad, but you know, there's times when it gets graphic. So just think, you know, for people that are consumers of this media, really the onus is on us, I think, to just think critically of the media that we're consuming and take away what we can. And if it's something where, like you said, Justin, if it's something where it makes you uncomfortable or you don't like what you're taking away from it, then don't consume that. Don't consume that media.
You are the only person in control of what you put into your mind.
Yes.
And that's a big battle. That's half the battle, because a lot of what's put into our mind these days, you know, is just a swipe away.
Yep.
Right.
So we gotta be careful not to allow all of that crap to go in, and look for things that are actually going to promote healthy lifestyles and better for you. You know, listening to music about feeling sad and stuff like that, like, I get it. When I'm feeling down and trying to work through something, I just want to know that there's other people out there who have been through what I'm doing, and I can look at them and be like, well, they made it. You know, so listening to a sad song doesn't always mean that you're like diving deeper into the sadness.
Yeah. I know that when
you also can be.
Right.
And you have to be careful, because I've fallen into that trap of allowing the music to continue to pull me back into that deeper place. It doesn't always pull you out. Sometimes it pulls you back in, keeps you there.
Final thoughts. I do think we should do a better job of protecting people and you know, helping them get better mental health. But I also want to say that I think too, our culture is just figuring out that part of that responsibility has been on the industry, which people are being treated with, and families and friends trust that when people go, they're receiving the best standard of care wherever they're going. And I think people have really started to question that, or started to be open to the idea of questioning that. And I think that that's important. So
the standard of care can't be a moving line.
Well, it can't be, here's a prescription. Now you just wrote a song about suicide. I guess we're treating you the best we can. Like, you know, I don't think
nope, I'm with you.
That's like an acceptable standard.
Oh, you're still sad? Here's another.
Right.
You know,
that's why when I'm sad, I just exclusively listen to the Wiggles soundtrack.
I bet you do.
Mashed potatoes, mashed potatoes, mashed potatoes, mashed potatoes. We're going to get copyright strikes now.
Ooh. I'm sure that's on repeat. VeggieTales?
Did you watch The Toy That Saved Christmas this holiday season? I did. Still holds up. So good.
I have children and I didn't watch that movie.
You should have. It's a classic.
You know what we watched though? The Grinch.
The Grinch.
That's good. That's a good one.
One of
The
the
Hero.
best silly songs of all time in The Toy That Saved Christmas.
Wow.
remember that?
Is that what we're leaving it on? Thank you guys for tuning into Diagnonsense. You still have time. You can watch VeggieTales, The Toy That Saved Christmas.
You can watch it any time of year.
No, you can't. There's a specific time for Christmas, and it's the day after Thanksgiving until the day after Christmas, okay?
The day after
Till
Christmas?
the 1st of January.
I don't
That's all you get.
know. No, I'm done. Maybe I'll move that around. Maybe
Isaac's
I'll
all
move that
playing
forward.
with. He's playing with something. He's coping with his.
This is me.
He's got a
coping with my
copium
trauma.
toy.
I have it's a little ninja starfish.
Did your mom give you that to help you with
No.
your trauma?
We're all gonna tease Isaac, and then he's gonna get a complex, or either that, or he's actually gonna get trauma.
I
Someday
think that
and
yours should
pissed
be
at
you on
us.
the phone. Your little sticker should be you on the telephone talking.
Talking
Your mom.
Talking
to your
with my
mom
mom.
about your trauma.
Yeah.
That should be another sticker for you.
My mom loves when we talk about my childhood
trauma.
trauma or lack thereof,
Like,
or how tame
Yeah,
my
yeah.
Making
childhood
it up.
trauma is. Yeah, us just making up childhood trauma for me.
Yeah. It's a psyop.
It's
I bet she does.
you're like gaslighting me into having childhood trauma.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like, do you remember your childhood, Isaac?
Wait, you don't.
I don't
you
remember
don't.
a whole lot.
You don't remember that you were actually raised by wolves from the ages of 3 to 5? That's because your childhood
Isaac's
trauma
like-
was so deep that you don't remember it anymore.
Yeah.
Like
Isaac's like, and then my mom made me eat my dinner.
scarred for life.
God.
And
What
if I didn't finish it, she said I would have it for breakfast.
That's pretty good.
Whoa,
good.
dude, I'm so sorry
Yeah.
that happened to you.
Yeah.
It's all right. We still love Isaac.
Oh my gosh, that's gonna stay in.
That's gonna stay in.